Okay, so we're back. Federal Agent Eric Lunt's approach. Life is tough. It's tougher if you're stupid and you're one stupid bastard. I started into man's eye and concluded he was right. I wiped the trickle of blood away from my forehead and looked deeper into the eyes of the man in the bathroom window. Hold on, Onyx. The swelling from the pistol strike to my forehead wasn't so bad, but it definitely left a mark. Washing the blood from my fingers, I gazed back into the mirror. Do not let this happen ever again, I promised myself. A gentle knock on the bathroom door broke the silence. I opened the door to see my concerned wife waiting for me. I'll be alright, I said. Get the kids. Family meeting time. The situation was not good. We only had enough food and water for a week. Worse yet, the marauders from the other community could return at any time looking for more scraps. My initial primary concern was security. The threat of having my wife raped and my children killed in front of me would never happen again. I would never again feel the powerless and helplessness. I remember my concealed carry course instructor telling our class, if you look like food, you will be eaten. At the time, I didn't understand the reference, but now it's very clear. The strong will prey on the weak. It's time to harden up and face reality. People are starting to get desperate, and that desperate just is justification enough to do terrible things to their fellow men. I pulled the beat up looking 6-hour P226 9mm from the hidden location. Years ago, a friend said a local gun store had several police trade-in P226 that looked rough, but were probably shot very few times. On his advice, I purchased a pistol, but it only came with one magazine. At the time, it didn't matter to me, as I would purchase more magazines later, but never seemed to happen. One pistol and one magazine of ammunition. It would have to do. I loaded the pistol and put it in my waistband. Never did find time to buy that holster either. Okay, here's the situation. I started. It was sobering conversation. We needed a long-term plan to survive until the situation changes. Our priorities were security, shelter, water, and food. Shelter wasn't an issue, and I already had plans to improve our security. Even though the power had gone out, we had plenty of firewood to burn to keep the house heated, to boil water for purification, and to cook our food on the wood-burning stove. The immediate concern was that all of the firewood was stacked in the back of the house. It would have to be moved indoors immediately to be protected from thieves. We had enough holiday and decorative candles to last us several months should we need light at night. And those would be supplemented with several flashlights that were available. Fortunately, having solar power chargers for a few of our batteries and electronics proved one of the most valuable resources. I could turn on the phones and computers once again to see if the cellular and internet networks were online, and the chargers provide all the recharging power we needed at the moment. I asked my wife and daughter to bring every plastic bin and tote they could find down to the living room when my son and I started moving the firewood into the house. In short order, all of the firewood was secured inside. Stacked in the corner were around 15 plastic bins of various sizes and shapes. My plan was to cut all the rain gutters around the house and place the bins underneath each drain to catch whatever rainwater, snow, or morning dew that accumulated. We could collect up all the bins at night to secure them and use the 3 bathtubs in the house as a place to store the water. If water ran critically short, I would drive up to a running stream about 2 miles from the house and fill up the bins and bring them back home. I still need to secure the ground floor for our house, for our home. But I had another task for my wife and daughter. The neighbors need to know what happened to us, and we need their help, I said. My wife wasn't thrilled with the idea of going outside, but we needed to warn the neighbors about marauders and see if any of them could spare some food. She finally agreed, and she and my daughter set out to warn the neighbors. Hey, make a mental note of those homes who do help us, okay? I asked. We need to repay their generosity when we are able. My wife nodded in agreement and left. I looked down at my boy as I closed the door. Come on, son. We got work to do. The threat of having my wife raped and my children killed in front of me would never happen again. Long ago, I had to build a storage shelf in the garage. Now I needed that wood for another purpose. After disassembling the shelves, everything was moved into the house. I was just about finished with the security preparations when my wife and daughter returned home. I was expecting some vigorous protest from my wife after she had seen how I had boarded up every first floor window inside our home section of 2x4 wood bars. If anyone was going to force themselves into my home again, they would be funneled through the front or back door, making it easier to help with them as a threat. Looking around, my wife quietly walked up and kissed me on the cheek with an approving look. I smiled and went back to work. I mounted metal brackets into the frame around the front and the rear doors. The brackets were just wide enough to lay 2 sections of wood flat into each bracket at the bottom of each door. The sections would easily be removed to allow the door to open. Nobody was getting through these doors without smashing down the entire facade of the house. Satisfied with my security preparations, I walked into the kitchen to check on my wife. Everybody I spoke with was grateful to know about the attack, and a few homes gave us some food. We now have enough food to get us through the next 2 weeks, maybe 3 if we rationed it. While the news was good, and it lifted my spirits some, I was still concerned. This is a short-term fix. I thought to myself, I need better options. Later that night, I discussed my plans with my wife. She was concerned, but understood and agreed with me. Early the next morning, I grabbed my gear bag and backpack in the garage. I pulled out my hunting equipment and my compound bow. I hadn't been hunting in years. Never seemed to have the time anymore. But now it wasn't for enjoyment. It was for survival. I gave the P226 to my wife, bar the door, and shoot anyone trying to break in, I said. She nodded and was quite capable of doing it. I'll be back tonight or sooner if I can find us some food. I put my gear in the car and pulled out of the neighborhood. It was a short drive out of town to the mountains. Finding a secluded spot, I backed the car into some trees, doing my best to conceal it from view. I pulled out the dusted old club from the trunk and locked it into the steering wheel. Yeah, it's lame, but it's better than nothing, I thought. Being the provider for my family, I've never taken out such a literal meaning until now. I started walking into the woods. Time to go shopping for dinner. That is Federal Agent Eric Lunn's approach for an economic collapse. There you go. And lastly, it's going to be Tim McWelch's approach he is a survival expert. And there are a few items in here. I wish I can zoom in and out. Either way. Alright guys, here comes part